Hello everyone, it's me Clayton. I just finished watching Devotion, starring Jonathan Majors and Glen Powell. So in the same year where Glen Powell starred in Top Gun Maverick as Hangman, he also gets to star in this film as Tom Hudner, the best friend to one Jesse Brown, the very first black aviator in the U.S. military. And am kind of surprised that this movie didn't get more of a box office reception than it did, considering that it's a rather well told, if somewhat formulaic, war movie that happens to do justice to its real life inspiration when it comes to their overall service in the war in North Korea. But let's get to the story, shall we? The story takes place in 1950, where Jesse Brown, played by Jonathan Majors, is the first black aviator that's allowed to serve in the U.S. Navy. He quickly makes friends with Tom Hudner, an ace pilot played by Glen Powell, and the movie is basically about their friendship, the trials and tribulations they go through in military training, partying in France, and eventually in their war in North Korea, while Brown has to deal with the discrimination that he faces since he's basically the Jackie Robinson of his particular field. But that's all I'll say about the story without spoiling anything. I don't know how historically accurate the film is, but based on how the characters act and the overall presentation of the writing, I'd say that the film does a pretty respectable job bringing the 1950s to life. Everything from the set design to the way the characters talk to the technology of the period screams the 50s, and I do think the production team did a pretty good job on that front. On top of that, the acting from both Jonathan Majors and Glen Powell is pretty spot on, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who's seen a lot of films with these two. It just also feels like the casting department didn't hire both of them purely because they're famous actors. It feels like they hired them because they do resemble the real life figures that they are portraying. On top of that, I appreciate the fact that Jonathan Majors doesn't have to play up his battle against racist morons throughout most of the film. He has to deal with the occasional bigoted person every now and then, but it's not the main focus of the film. The main focus is more just to tell the story and to have the two biggest actors play off each other. And when it's like that, it does it very well. I even appreciate that in the combat scenes, when it comes to the fact that we get to see some brutal action on foot as well as in the air. And while the plane scenes aren't as thrilling as they are in Top Gun Maverick, but very few films are, I do think that the plane scenes are still done rather well. This is both in basic training and when they're in the actual combat. I think almost any major film that involves involves planes is going to be compared to Top Gun Maverick when it comes to how well the action scenes are handled up in the air. But Devotion ultimately feels more like it's not trying as hard to wow the audience with its visuals, and more so trying to just inform people of what happened and to get us wrapped up in the drama of the time period. And I think it does so very well. Granted, there's the occasional writing slip-up where it does feel like the film goes on a little too long towards the end. It's over 2 hours, and I do think about 10 minutes or so could have been cut to make it a little more tolerable. But for the most part, I do think it's a solid film that really deserved more attention when it came out. Especially since it came out in the same weekend as Strange World, which also bombed at the box office. But at least it's a generally good film, and I hope it catches on with people someday. That's why I'm going to give Devotion an 8.5 out of 10. See you next time.